A radio voiceover just for fun. It's a station ID for US1023, and I thought I might document a little bit of the process. So the first thing I do is I get close to the microphone, okay? And so the next thing I do is I get a few takes, and I might use both of them, or I might just use one, and I can comp them, etc., etc. But what I want to do first is just create some generic ones, and then effects can later be applied. So another thing is you want to go ahead and normalize the volume. So therefore, when I go to add my noise gate, it's going to find the smaller sounds more easily, and I'll have an appropriate threshold. So the next step is going to be to add the noise gate. So here's the noise gate, and you'll be able to see how it opens and closes during the appropriate portions. Basically, when it's silent, it should be closed. And then when I'm speaking, it should be open. And so I wanted to raise the threshold as high as possible to reduce as much noise as possible. And so what I had to do is increase the release time just quite a bit here. And therefore, I could have a higher threshold with maximum reduction, and it's not going to be quite as choppy. You can see how it closes during the silent parts.
The new US1023. The Crossroads of country and rock.
Now, you could also optionally add a denoiser as the very first plugin when doing a voiceover or radio style voice. But that creates a whole nother set of issues, and really you want to have a good denoiser selected first. So if you can do that and you have that, then by all means do that. And before even any of that, you obviously want to have a good treated recording situation, so you're going to get as low a noise floor as possible. Another thing you can do real quick before you put any other effects is run an analyzer over the voice. And what it's going to happen is if you use a sonogram, you can clearly see what's extremely resonant, and you can kind of adjust the colors of the peaks and whatnot using this option here. But so from this, you can tell what will need de-essing. So it will show up like in this area here, that's what's going to need de-essing. And in this area here, we have some low end because I'm in a tile room, and some of that can be reduced as well. So for once, I actually did a good job of taming my sibilants. Probably didn't do it just now, but what I did is in the first take, it was really good, and then the second take, just a tiny bit shows up. Now using this analyzer, I can see just precisely that it's around 6,105 hertz. And we have some additional sibilants in the 7,000 range. So I know what to target with my EQ or my de-esser. And I would use a very sharp slope on the filter, something like this, to tame those S's. So another thing that's cool is this froze and this froze in exactly the correct spot. So I can see the same problem that exists in both of these kinds of views. And actually this analyzer does have that view as well, but I find it kind of confusing to see both of those happen. But sometimes it's actually helpful as well. But so therefore I can see, oh yeah, there's a lot of buildup around 7,000, 6,000. That's all this area here. And so I can either adjust the slope very steeply or have multiple bands going there to tame all that frequency. Now I have 3 EQs going, and I have one general EQ over the problem areas, which is the low-end resonance, the rumble, and the high-end sibilants. And so then I have more targeted EQs on the low end here, and then I have more targeted EQ on the high end here. And I've of course rolled off the area below, let's say 30 hertz. So you can see what it looks like through the analyzer here.
The new US1023. The Crossroads of country and rock. The new US1023. The Crossroads of country and rock.
So especially in that second pass, the S's are super tame now. So here I'll do it without any of these effects. And you can see, watch this area here for the yellow.
The new US1023.
So there it is.
The Crossroads of country.
So using those effects, I was able to deeply tame that resonance going on there. So that's the power of using these equalizers, sort of as de-essers or resonance removal tools. You can also use de-essers to do the same thing. It's just a little bit different. And so the other thing is, now we can add some subtle DSP if we want to, like a chorus effect to add even a little more substance. And we can actually put some of that bass in there as a sort of psychoacoustic treatment if we want to. And I have a special plugin that does that called Ambassador, but I may or may not choose to use that. So that would give a more exaggerated effect to the vocal. Okay, so then the last thing we can do, after we're done with any additional effects sweetening, we would add the limiter. For the sake of simplicity, I'm going to try it with just this one effect for now, which is the chorus. And I'm going to use a limited width because it's going to be on radio. It really, I'm not sure how much it matters, but it's a limited. The idea is if it's going to be on radio, you just want to have it, mono for this purpose for an announcement vocal. So anyways, I've also reduced the saturation to almost none. And then as far as the number of voices, not all choruses will have this feature, but I reduced the number of voices, it looks like, to about 3. And what happens is when you add more voices on a chorus, it starts to sound roomy, like a reverb. And so I do not want it to sound like that. I want it to sound limited, so I reduced that. And then we also have a rate and a shape. And so we also have the dry and wet as well, which I have all the way up to wet. We could augment that as needed. So here's the subtle chorus.
The new US1023, the Crossroads of country and rock.
So what happens there is it sounds like it's on a radio station. It sounds like it's been processed, but it's nothing too crazy. I decided to add 2 more effects. One is the Ambassador, which gives me a fake sub-bass effect. So it's giving me like a subwoofer type sound on top of the vocal, which is super cool. And then it has ways to finesse that as much as you would like it. So again, we're just making something sound as if it's being processed by a fancy radio system. And then the next thing is, most people aren't going to like this if they're engineers. I've crushed the vocal so that it's really making everything really level. You can use a compressor for this as well, but again, this thing is so awesome, this limiter here. It does so much so well that I really just use it for very quick stuff like this, and it's no problem at all. So you can see the levels as they come out versus they go in. This is the one coming in, and this is the one going out. And what happens is it's going to retain about the high level the entire time.
The new US1023, the Crossroads of country and rock.
So that worked great.
US1023, the Crossroads of
and
country and rock.
Here you can see the bass processor. Again, I've dialed some of these back a bit because it does get to sound more like a monster type voice if you go too crazy with this. So we've tried to do a very subtle radio style voice here very quickly. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and include this little excerpt here as the WAV file in the video for this. However, it's of course going to sound better on either a radio or a real stereo versus on a phone.
The new US1023, the Crossroads of country and rock. The new US1023, the Crossroads of country and rock.